and just after 6:30 this evening, the fire reportedly began in the Dunn McCarthy building. That is an empty shoe factory on Washington Street. From there, flames leapt to the Pacino and Rossi building. It houses Max Studios, a photo processing plant, and Auburn Leathercraft. Also, the Rude Utility building is said to be in flames. These buildings are to the west of the Auburn prison, and the wind that is fanning the fire is blowing to the east. That's why there's so much concern. There are also reports the Auburn Wire building has fallen victim to the fire, but police could not confirm this to us. The Cayuga County Fire Control Center is telling us that every available piece of equipment from every fire district in and around Auburn is at the scene, battling the blaze. Also, Eastern Ambulance tells us their mass casualty unit has responded to the fire scene. So far, no victims have been taken away from the scene. We have a reporter on the scene, and we hope to effort a live report from Kay Newman shortly.
It's moving fire burning in Auburn tonight. Good evening. Just about every fire company in Cayuga County is in Auburn right now, fighting one of the biggest fires the city has ever seen. The call went in just after 6:30 tonight at the old Dunn McCarthy Shoe Factory, located near the prison on Washington and Arterial Streets. Now, as you can see, it's a huge blaze with flames shooting hundreds of feet into the air. And it quickly spread into neighboring buildings. Max Studios and Auburn Wire are also burning, and the blaze is coming dangerously close to the Auburn prison. Thousands of people turned out tonight just to see it for themselves.
It's awful. It's horrible. It's the worst fire I've seen since the one down on Osborne Street. It was a real bad fire like that. It took the whole block down.
I think probably they ought to start setting some laws to where these people have some responsibilities with these buildings, either to get them so that they can be utilized with another company or something, or to tear some of these older buildings down. We won't have structures like this.
There are no reports of injuries or evacuations at this point. Units from Onondaga County have also been sent in, and there are reports one tanker got into an accident on the way to the fire. We'll have more details for you as they become available, but police are asking people to stay away from the scene. Two young girls remain in critical...
Golly!
More news, more often. This is TV3 Action News at 11 with Betsy Sykes.
A car crash on Syracuse's south side. We're told drunk driving may have been the cause. And a close call for these people trapped in a car drifting along the Mohawk River. But the big story on Action News tonight, an inferno in Auburn. Firefighters from Cayuga County and Onondaga County are at this hour battling a giant fire in downtown Auburn. It started in the Dunn McCarthy building and quickly spread, engulfing the Max Studios building across the street. An inferno so intense tonight it lights up the Auburn sky.
And it started in the back of the building, and I just watched it as it was working its way up. It was blowing out all the windows, were just blowing right out of it. And they tried to save the building across the street, but it jumped. You could just see the fire just explode and jump right across, and everybody, the trucks had to back out. Everybody had to evacuate the area because they couldn't keep it under control.
We're told there were some flammable chemicals inside one of the buildings. At this point, the fire is still burning. No reports of any injuries so far. Now, we did get late word tonight that a fire tanker truck got in an accident at the corner of Seymour and North Streets in the city of Auburn on the way to the fire. People were taken to the hospital, but we don't know how serious the injuries are right now. In all, so far, 6 businesses have burned. Dunn McCarthy, Max Studios, Auburn Leathercraft, Rude Utilities, Auburn Wire, and Green Air Control. At this point, no word of any evacuations at Auburn Prison or at any of the nearby homes. Investigators are still trying to find out what caused Saturday's deadly...
Today, it looks like a fairly quiet day. A few scattered rain or snow showers this morning, staying cloudy through the afternoon with a high temperature of 40. And at the bus stop this morning, a couple of rain or snow showers. 38 for the temperature. Will feel more like 30. Active week weather-wise.
You're all excited.
Follow.
All right, thanks, Tommy. The big story on Action News: flames lighting up the night sky in Auburn. It looks like something out of a movie, but it was real. It was devastating, and as Matt Mulcahy reports, it may be arson.
This was the one you had to see. Firefighters from 3 counties. Alarm after alarm after alarm after alarm. History going up in roaring flames and smoke. The old Dunn McCarthy Shoe Factory burned first and fastest.
It's been there for quite a while. It's quite, yeah, I'd say it's historic. Historic site, yeah. It's another building that's lost in this town again that can't be replaced.
But in some form, buildings can be replaced, lives can't. That's where Auburn got off clean overnight, even with homes just yards away from the big burn.
The fire started eating through from the other side. And you can walk out the door and you can feel the heat.
This is one of those fires that people just have to come out to see. It's the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's a crowd here watching these buildings burn down. And let us show you why. Because from right here, you can feel the heat of the flames. And every so often, a wall will collapse. Besides Dunn and McCarthy, other active businesses are destroyed too. Auburn Wire, Rude Utility, Mac Studios, and Auburn Leather are among them. And don't forget, the city had an eye on this old property, just as it did the Waite Furniture Building downtown before it burned. This morning, the origin of this fire is considered suspicious. It's also considered the biggest fire in Auburn's history, the fire you had to see. Matt Mulcahy, TV3 Action News, Sunrise.
Back here in Syracuse, investigators continue their search today for what sparked a fatal fire. It happened here at
the old Dunn McCarthy Shoe Factory. The flames were so large and so intense, curious spectators came from all over just to get a look. Thousands of them lined the streets.
It's awful. It's horrible. It's the worst fire I've seen since the one down on Osborne Street. It was a real bad fire like that. It took the whole block down.
Not only was it an intense fire, it was a fast-moving one. It quickly leapt across a street and swallowed a neighboring building housing Mac Studios.
Very shortly after they got there, they went into a defensive mode and just tried to keep the fire from spreading any farther than it did.
But it did spread on. The blaze raged on well into the early morning hours. At one point, around 1:30, firefighters thought they had it all contained. That's when they noticed a fourth building had gone up in flames, this one housing Rude Utilities. In a sense, this fire was unfightable.
It started sucking the air right up the outlet and went right across into between the two buildings, up the outlet, and it just, wow, just like a blowtorch, just blew right out at us. We had to get out of there. It was hairy for a while there. We thought we were going to lose a truck.
And it was a terrifying night for nearby homeowners. Half a dozen houses were evacuated. Other neighbors stood by and watched and worried and did what they could to save their homes.
It had me so scared. I had all my Christmas presents ready to get right out of the house because I just didn't know, Got my kids out.
A few firefighters were injured by the heat radiating from the flames. They were minor injuries treated at the scene. 3 more firefighters from Montezuma were hurt on their way to the blaze. Their tanker rolled over after it collided with a car. Right now, the search is on to find the cause of this disaster. Seeing that it started in an old vacant warehouse, it's definitely suspicious. But for many people here, that really doesn't matter now. They're the business owners who watched their livelihoods go up in flames just a week before Christmas. Lisa Holbrook, WTVH5 News.
And again, the traffic note, part of Washington Street in Auburn is closed because the firefighting is still continuing at this hour. However, the Route 5 arterial,
49. For Walsh, the only thing left to do now is rebuild.
We'll move someplace else and intend to build here as far as we can see. When this thing comes down and get a modern building and redo things.
4 other businesses were left in ruins by the suspicious fire that started in an abandoned shoe factory across the street. This morning, owners threatened by dangerous conditions, heavy smoke, flames, and unstable walls still left standing, fought to get as close to their businesses as possible in order to begin surveying the damage. Like Walsh, some are insured, but they still stand to lose a lot of money. 12 people worked at Rude Utilities. Clinton Woodfork, a former employee, says many working close by will be out of a job.
Yeah, it's going to be devastating. Now Rude Utilities, see, they had 2 businesses in their building. They had RCI and they had Rude Utilities. And they employed a lot of people.
But the fire won't put Rude Utilities out of business. This building right behind me will become a temporary shelter.
We own that building also, so we could go in there. It isn't anything that we've kept up, but it could be put in working fashion in a few days. But we're going to go visit some other places that have some square footage and see if we can make some deals.
Several other businesses were spared. Firefighters struggled to contain the blaze, halting the flames before more were destroyed. Those businesses will primarily suffer heavy water and smoke damage. Walsh says they are lucky too. He says this is one blaze he will never forget. He joined the crowd last night watching the fire rage out of control. Tina Dunbar, 9 News, Auburn.
Fire investigators say business owners may not be able to fully survey their properties for a couple.
Watching the sight of so much heat, light, and utter destruction reminds us there are some things we just cannot control. Matt Mulcahy was there and begins our team coverage tonight.
For all of us who saw it up close, this fiery image burned into our minds forever. Yet another piece of historic Auburn is gone. This is the kind of community spirit that makes fighting this kind of fire a project that everyone pulls together on. Here you have the Salvation Army workers giving coffee and refreshments to those who have been out here for hours now. And on this side, fire departments from all around the region are pulling together their resources to try to put this thing out. With the daylight comes a chance to wander ever closer to the embers left behind. A time to bring out the camera and rehash old times.
There's an old historic landmark, and all the immigrants and everybody worked here all their life, every nationality. Even my father worked here 40, 50 years ago.
This is a 19th century sketch of the old Dunn McCarthy Shoe Factory. They started business in 1866, hitting full stride at this Washington Street location in the early part of this century by using labor from the prison next door.
And Matt tells us tonight that investigators hope to go inside to get a better idea of what might have started this fire. Well, much more was lost to the inferno, more than bricks and boards. People's jobs were also burned away during the night. Several businesses were destroyed. Tracy Carlos is that part of our story now as team coverage continues.
Gordon Dungy is breathing a
route from the fire.
You're concerned for your fellow firefighters, and with businesses like this at night, you're not generally concerned with other people. Not like a home where you have to worry about families and so forth. So we were worried about that so much as the property damage and our own personnel.
Today, firefighters were rewarded with food and drink courtesy of the local McDonald's, Domino's Pizza, and Tops Grocery Store. The fire has also knocked out phone service to nearly 1,000 New York telephone customers. Coin-operated phones have been set up at the Polish Falcons parking lot on Pulaski Street, and cell phones will be made available to those with life-threatening problems. Service should be back on by tomorrow night.
Charity is
Didn't do it, but I did.
No firm number tonight on how many people are out of work. Auburn Mayor Guy Cosentino says it's somewhere around 100. More bad news in these economic hard times. Tracy Carlos, TV3 Action News, Auburn.
The magnitude of this fire quickly forced the fire department into a defensive position, working to save other buildings nearby. But in the early moments of the Dunn McCarthy demise, Auburn firefighters were right in the heart of the quickly spreading flames, and that made for some nervous moments.
Well, when we were in between the buildings down there and fire started to grow, that became our problem. We had to take our ladder truck back down and get it out of there. And we had about 4 minutes to spare to get it out before the fire jumped, and it came out like a blowtorch.
The other big challenge for the professionals and the volunteers was staying up and at it all night long. Fighting a fire anytime is hard work. Doing it with little sleep is even more of a drain. Auburn has been hit hard by raging fires in the last few years, 2 of the biggest believed to be arson. Several businesses were lost when fire raced through a block of buildings at Lewis and Franklin Streets nearly 3 years ago. That fire began in a vacant room above the Legends restaurant. The building was more than 100 years old. And just this past October, the historic H.R. Waite building made another spectacular night show. It too had long been vacant, but the city was looking at possibly putting in some businesses and apartments. This fire also considered suspicious. Another weekend fire took a far greater toll when it comes.
Fire devastates Auburn businesses. Good evening. Tracy's on assignment tonight. Suspicious is the word from Auburn, where investigators say last night's massive blaze, which consumed a city block, may have been intentionally set. And tonight, firefighters remain on the scene of one of that city's worst fires ever. Keith Copeland reports it may take days to nail down the fire's exact cause.
It lit up the nighttime sky like a giant fireball, fueled by the timber floors inside the old Dunn McCarthy factory, where the huge fire is believed to have broken out. Flames reportedly leapt from building to building, creating a whirlwind firestorm that burned out of control. Today, more than 18 hours after the fire started, the smoldering embers were still visible from miles away. Small fires still burned inside some of the old brick buildings, many of which lay in ruins. People came from miles around to get a close-up view of the fire. Those we spoke with say it looked like the area was hit by a bomb.
That's what we said when we came down today and looked at it. That looked like a ruined city somewhere, just totally destroyed.
Because some friends knocked on my door and they said, oh, the whole city of Auburn's on fire. And I said, get out of here. And they said, yeah, because we had been in our house for about maybe an hour. The fire had been going on for like maybe about an hour or so. And I come outside and I was like, wow.
It wasn't the entire city of Auburn, but easily more than a square block, including the buildings which housed Max's studio, Auburn Leather, and Rude Utilities. Fire investigators say it may take a couple of days to nail down the cause of this fire. They say it's just too dangerous to go inside the buildings. Now, what they plan to do is tear down some of the remaining walls, at which point it'll probably be safe enough for them to go back inside. But even at this early point, the fire is being called suspicious.
Just the growth, how much fire there was and where it was.
Started quickly
and the building that was what we call a dead building, there's no power to it. There's no reason for it to start.
Firefighters remain on the scene tonight. More than 200 were there at the height of this massive blaze. And the best news to come from the scene is that there were no major injuries to report. Now the cleanup will begin, with early estimates at $500,000. Keith Copeland, WTVH-5 News.
That's our top news story of the night. Kathy Orr now has our first look at the weather. Kathy?
And tomorrow is the official beginning of the winter season at 3:26 tomorrow after.
The question in Auburn is, what next?
Well, there's going to be some people who are not going to have a very happy Christmas. I mean, there's no question about that. What we want to do is work with those businesses to get them online as quickly as possible, get those people who are out of work or who are blocked from work today, get them back up and running as soon as possible. We will put major efforts there. We're fortunate that the largest portion of the blaze area was a vacant building.
And with flames still visible in the basement of that vacant building tonight, cleaning up is a very difficult task.
The Chief Calarca was very, very concerned about this reigniting. There's not a lot of fuel there, but we're very concerned about it reigniting over the night.
While firefighters work to eliminate that risk, the city has called in outside help to eliminate some other dangers.
Tonight we have Bianchi Trison, a contractor out of East Syracuse, who is doing some emergency demolition work, mainly on Washington Street, which are taking down some of the remaining walls that could be a safety factor.
Phone company personnel were waiting for them to knock those walls down so they could string cable to reestablish service to the city's west end. About 1,000 people have been without phones because of the fire.
We're getting cable prepared to splice it. Then when the line gang pull in 2 temporary cables across the bridge, we'll splice them and get the customer service back. Hopefully by tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow afternoon.
And the mayor is hoping some of the businesses affected by the fire can be back in gear almost as quickly. The Syracuse Red Cross is helping the survivors of this past weekend's fatal fire, but the Red Cross now needs your help. A weekend fire at this apartment, a bomb.
Several print and broadcast reports claim a bomb or incendiary device was found unexploded inside the wreckage of the Dunn McCarthy factory. Not true, says Auburn Police Chief John Eklund.
It was a heavy-duty industrial type electrical fuse, a cartridge fuse of a type used for service entrance.
Fire investigators have begun their work, but they are waiting for all of the embers to cool before they can dig into the scene of the fire at full speed.